The house was too quiet after the funeral. Every corner still carried traces of him. His jacket on the chair, his glasses by the lamp. I kept busy, scrubbing the dishes after dinner, trying to drown the ache with the sound of running water. That's when Daniel spoke. Mom, you can't live here anymore. This house is ours now. I froze, the sponge slipping from my hand. Soap dripped onto the floor, tiny bubbles popping one after another. At first, I thought he was joking. My son, my firstborn, always had a strange sense of humor. I turned to him, forcing a shaky laugh. What did you just say? He didn't smile. His wife stood behind him, arms folded tight, her lips curling. You heard me, Daniel said, his tone clipped. This place is too much for you. Dad wanted us to take over. My chest tightened. Your father and I built this house together. He would never. His wife cut me off. Be realistic. You can't take care of a property this size. Daniel and I have been planning our future here. It's time you move into something smaller. My throat burned. I searched Daniel's face for even a flicker of guilt, but his eyes stayed hard. You're serious, I whispered. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. Dead serious. Mom, you're not strong enough anymore. You can't manage this place. The words stung more than the loss of my husband, my own child, dismissing me like I was a burden. Daniel, this is my home, I said, voice shaking. I cooked for you here, raised you here. Every wall has our memories. He shrugged. Memories don't pay bills. Dad left everything to me. That's the truth. I gripped the counter to steady myself. He's lying. He has to be lying. My husband never would have cut me out. My voice broke. You'd throw your own mother out of her house? Daniel sighed, like I was being dramatic. It's not throwing you out. It's moving on. You'll be fine. His wife smirked, her eyes flicking toward the hallway as if she already owned it. I wanted to scream, but the air caught in my lungs. Instead, I whispered, How could you? Daniel straightened. You'll understand soon. It's what's best for everyone. I thought losing my husband was the worst pain I'd ever feel. But hearing those words from my son, my boy who once clung to my hand on his first day of school, shattered something deeper. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and pushed it across the table. These are the papers. Dad signed everything over to me. It's all legal. The folder landed with a heavy thud against the wood. My hand shook as I stared at it. Everything inside me screamed not to open it, but I couldn't look away. Daniel spread the papers across my kitchen table like he was the owner of the house already. He didn't even ask if he could sit. He just pushed my teacup aside and flattened the folder with the palm of his hand. Look here, he said, his voice sharp but calm, like he had rehearsed it. Dad left this place to me. It's in writing. I stared at the pages, the letters blurring before my eyes. What are you talking about? That's not possible. Your father and I, this house is in both our names. I was there when we signed. His wife leaned against the counter, arms folded, lips curled in that little smirk I had grown to hate. He's right, Mom. It's time you stop clinging to the past. You'll be better off in a smaller apartment, something easier to manage. I gripped the edge of the chair to steady myself. An apartment. This is my home. I raised you in this kitchen, Daniel. Every corner of this house has your father's touch. My throat tightened, the words breaking as they came out. Daniel tapped the signature line with his finger. Then explained this. That's your name. Clear as day. I bent closer, squinting, my hands shaking as I touched the paper. My name. But the curves were wrong, the letters too neat. My hand had never been that steady, especially not in the last few years. I never signed this. Never. He shrugged like it didn't matter. It doesn't change anything. The law is the law. You can fight it, but you'll only embarrass yourself. I wanted to scream, to throw the papers across the room, but the weight of betrayal pressed down heavier than anger. My son, the boy who used to hug me after nightmares, was now standing in front of me, trying to erase me from my own home. I can't believe you're doing this, I whispered. Your father would be ashamed, his wife scoffed. Don't bring him into this. He wanted the family to move forward, not get stuck in old bricks and furniture. I turned to Daniel, searching for even a flicker of the boy I knew. Look me in the eye and tell me this is what you want. Tell me you're fine throwing your own mother out. For a second, his jaw twitched, but then his expression hardened. It's what's best. The words sliced through me. My knees felt weak, but I refused to let him see me fall. I gathered the papers into a shaky pile and pushed them back toward him. These don't mean anything. I know what I signed and I know what I didn't. His wife laughed softly, almost mocking. Denial won't save you. I couldn't sit anymore. I stood, picking up the basket of laundry I had left half folded on the counter earlier. My hands trembled so badly that a towel slipped onto the floor. I didn't pick it up. I just clutched the rest of the clothes, trying to focus on something normal, anything that kept me from collapsing right there in front of them. Daniel gathered the papers calmly, as if he had already won. Think about it, Mom. The sooner you accept this, the easier it'll be for everyone. I hugged the bundle of clothes to my chest, my heart pounding so loudly it drowned out everything else. Get out of my house. For a moment, silence filled the room. His wife whispered something under her breath, then tugged his arm. He slid the folder back into his bag, his eyes colder than I'd ever seen them. As the door shut behind them, I sank onto the chair, the laundry slipping from my arms, scattering across the floor. I pressed my face into my hands. The papers, the signatures, the certainty in his voice. None of it made sense. But one thought kept repeating in my head. If they had papers, then somewhere in this house, I had proof too. My eyes drifted to the old cabinet in the corner, the one my husband always kept locked. My heart jumped. Maybe the answers were still inside. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the pile of dirty plates I hadn't touched since last night. My chest felt heavy, and no amount of scrubbing would clean the words Daniel had thrown at me. This house is ours now. I kept replaying it over and over, trying to make sense of how my son could betray me like that. My husband had promised me. He promised me we'd grow old here together. He never once mentioned giving this place to Daniel. I pressed my palms against the counter, trying to steady myself. That was when I remembered the drawer. My husband's drawer. The one he always said held important things. I had avoided it since his passing, afraid of what I might find, but suddenly my hands moved on their own. The drawer stuck halfway, as if it didn't want to reveal its secrets. I pulled harder until it jerked open with a sharp sound. My breath caught. Inside lay neat stacks of envelopes, folded documents, and one thick folder with our names printed on the front. My fingers trembled as I flipped through. Insurance forms. Receipts. Then there it was. The deed. The real one. My name, his name, both printed clear as day. My throat tightened. No, 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 I whispered to myself. So Daniel lied. Tears stung my eyes, but then something else caught my attention. Tucked behind the papers was a folded sheet, my husband's handwriting scrawled across it. I unfolded it slowly, my heart racing. If anything happens to me, keep the original safe. Don't trust anyone with copies. Especially not Daniel. My knees nearly gave out. He had known. He had warned me in his quiet way. My sweet husband had seen this coming and still hadn't told me outright. Maybe he didn't want me to worry. The letter slipped from my hands onto the table as my chest heaved. My son had looked me in the eye and lied, holding up fake papers while the truth sat locked away all this time. I pressed my palm against the deed, the paper warm beneath my hand. A tiny spark of strength flickered inside me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. My husband hadn't abandoned me. Still, the weight of it all pressed down hard. What kind of mother has to hide her own deed from her child? I thought of Daniel as a little boy, running through this house with scraped knees and laughter that echoed in every corner. How did that boy turn into this man who wanted me gone? I wiped my face and walked back to the stove. I forced myself to cook something simple, just rice and vegetables. The motions calmed my shaking hands. Chop, stir, taste. But the silence in the house was unbearable. Every sound from the pan hit sharp, reminding me of how empty it all felt without him and how unsafe it was with children like mine circling like vultures. I sat down at the table, staring at the steam rising from my plate, but I couldn't eat. My stomach twisted. My husband's words replayed in my mind. Don't trust Daniel. I thought that was the worst of it, that the papers alone were enough proof to fight back. But then I heard footsteps on the porch, heavy and deliberate. The doorbell rang, echoing through the house. When I opened the door, Daniel stood there with a folder under his arm. His expression was colder than before. "Mom," he said, his voice clipped, "we need to get this over with. Sign these papers." His eyes met mine, and I suddenly realized this battle was just beginning. Daniel dropped the stack of papers on my coffee table, the sound sharp enough to make me flinch. "Sign them, Mom," he said flatly. "It's better this way." I stared at the pages but didn't reach for them. "Better for who?" My voice cracked, but I forced myself to keep my eyes on his. "For everyone," he snapped. "You can't keep living here by yourself. It's not safe. You'll thank me later." His wife leaned against the doorway, arms folded, eyes darting around my living room like she already owned it. "He's right. You should be somewhere smaller. A nice apartment. Less to worry about." I swallowed hard. My apron pocket felt heavy with the folded deed I had tucked there earlier. My fingers brushed against it, the only thing keeping me from breaking apart. "This is my home," I whispered. "Your father wanted it this way." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Dad would have wanted you taken care of. And that means moving out. Stop being stubborn." My chest burned. Stubborn. That's what he called me after I spent 30 years keeping this family together. I thought about all the nights I stayed up sewing his torn school uniforms, the mornings I walked him to class when he was scared. Stubborn. That word sliced deeper than any threat. I pushed the papers back toward him. "No, I'm not signing." His voice rose, sharp enough to rattle the picture frames on the wall. "You don't understand, Mom. This is happening whether you like it or not." "Then you'll have to drag me out," I said quietly, though my hands trembled. For a moment, silence filled the room. He stared at me, eyes hard, and I didn't recognize him anymore. The boy I raised was gone. In his place stood a man who looked at me like I was an obstacle. His wife smirked, shaking her head. "We'll see how long she holds out." They left without another word, the slam of the door echoing through the house. I sank onto the couch, my knees weak. My tea sat cold on the table, untouched. I reached for it anyway, just for something to hold, but my hand shook so badly I spilled half the cup. The silence pressed down on me until I thought I'd suffocate. I walked to the kitchen, poured another cup, and held it tight. I told myself I still had the deed. I still had proof. But deep inside, fear crawled through me. Proof didn't always mean protection. I stared at the front door, waiting for it to burst open again. Every creak of the house made me jump. I tried to steady myself, whispering, "You're not powerless. You still have something left." I sipped the bitter tea, but it barely went down. My heart wouldn't calm. And just when I thought I could breathe again, I heard the mail slot creak. An envelope slid onto the floor. I bent to pick it up, my stomach already twisting. The bold black letters on the front made my knees give way. Notice of eviction. The envelope was heavy in my hands. My name printed in bold black letters made my stomach twist before I even opened it. I tore it open at the kitchen table, the same table where I had fed my children for years, and the words jumped out at me, "You are hereby summoned." I couldn't breathe. Daniel wasn't bluffing. He had actually filed for eviction. My own son. The paper shook between my fingers. "No, no, this can't be real," I whispered, my voice breaking into the quiet room. My eyes darted over the lines again, as if reading them one more time would change the meaning. It didn't. He was dragging me to court. The back door creaked, and I froze, half expecting him to walk in. He didn't. Only the wind rattled the loose screen. I pressed the notice flat against the table and buried my face in my hands. I remember Daniel as a boy, how he once cried when I scolded him for breaking a vase. He had looked so guilty, so desperate for my forgiveness. Where had that boy gone? When did he become this man who could throw his own mother out like garbage? My phone buzzed, startling me. A neighbor's message popped up, asking if everything was all right. I wanted to answer, but shame glued my fingers to the table. If people found out, I'd be humiliated. The whole neighborhood would know my son thought I wasn't worth a home. I forced myself up, gathered every bill and paper from the counter, and spread them across the table. Hospital receipts, utility notices, my husband's pension statements. They formed a messy pile of years I had fought to keep this family afloat. Now it was all evidence of how vulnerable I was. I whispered to the empty chair across from me, the one where my husband always sat. "I don't know what to do without you." "You'd know how to stop him." "I don't." My tears splashed on the papers, blurring the ink. I picked up the phone, hesitated, then dialed Emily. She didn't answer. I tried again, straight to voicemail. My chest tightened with panic. I needed her. I needed at least one of my children to tell me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't imagining the cruelty. Hours passed, and the house grew darker. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dim glow of the street lamp leaking through the window, staring at the stack of papers like they might speak. Every shadow on the wall looked like betrayal waiting to pounce. Finally, my phone rang. Emily's name flashed across the screen. Relief flooded me, and I grabbed it with trembling hands. "Emily," I gasped, almost crying. "Thank God. Your brother, he's trying to take the house from me. He's filed papers. I don't know what to do." There was silence. Too long. My heart pounded. Then her voice came, flat and cold. "Mom, maybe Daniel is right." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. When my phone finally lit up with Emily's name, I nearly dropped it. My heart slammed so hard against my ribs, I thought it would burst. For weeks, she hadn't returned a single call. I clung to that screen like it was a lifeline. "Emily?" My voice cracked. "Sweetheart, thank God I've been so worried." There was a pause. Not the kind that comes from bad reception. No, this was heavy, intentional. When she finally spoke, her tone was steady, distant. "Hi, Mom. I didn't know if I should call." Tears sprang to my eyes. "Didn't know if you should." "Honey, I need you. Your brother is trying to take the house from me. I'm drowning here." Another pause. Then, "I know. Daniel told me." My chest tightened. He told you? Then you know what he's doing. Emily, you have to help me. Please. Her sigh cut right through me. Mom, maybe Daniel isn't wrong. I froze. What? You shouldn't be in that big house alone. It's too much for you. He said it's falling apart, and you don't have the money to keep it up. Maybe moving somewhere smaller. Stop. My hands shook as I gripped the phone. That's my home. Your father built it. Every wall, every floorboard. Do you think I can just pack 30 years into a box and leave? Her voice softened, but not in the way I needed. More like pity. It's not safe for you anymore. You forget things. You're tired all the time. Daniel just wants what's best. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear, as if I could force her to hear the breaking in my heart. He doesn't want what's best. He wants what's his. Don't you see? He's trying to erase me from my own life. Mom, she hesitated, then added, maybe you're being stubborn. That word sliced me open. Stubborn. After everything I had sacrificed, after the nights I stayed up nursing her fevers, after the jobs I worked to pay her tuition, stubborn? I swallowed hard, but the words poured out before I could stop them. Emily, when your father lost his job, I pawned my wedding ring to keep food on the table. When you wanted to go on that school trip, I worked overtime, scrubbing floors till my hands bled. When you cried yourself to sleep after that boy broke your heart, I lay beside you all night. Was that stubbornness? Silence. I thought maybe I'd gotten through to her. My heart begged for just 1 ounce of love, one memory to pull her back to me, but when she finally spoke, her voice was even colder. I can't fight Daniel, Mom. He's my brother. He's family too. My knees buckled. I slid into the kitchen chair, clutching the phone like it was the only thing holding me upright. And I'm not your family? That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. My throat burned, my voice shaking. You've chosen him. Just like he wanted. I heard her exhale sharply. I have my own family now, Mom. My kids need me. I can't get dragged into this. The words hit harder than the eviction notice. My own daughter, the little girl whose hair I used to braid every morning before school, was telling me she couldn't stand by me now. My hands trembled so badly the phone nearly slipped. Emily, if your father were alive, he'd be ashamed. He'd never forgive you for abandoning me like this. Her reply came quick, almost defensive. Don't put Dad into this. He's gone, Mom. Things are different now. Different, I whispered, or convenient for you and Daniel. That silence again. But this time, I knew it wasn't hesitation. It was guilt. She didn't deny it. She didn't say a word. I let the quiet stretch, my tears dripping onto the table. Finally, I whispered, I only wanted one of you to stand by me. Just one. Was that too much to ask? Her voice was flat. I have to go. Dinner's on the stove. The line went dead before I could respond. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the black screen. My reflection stared back. Red eyes, wet cheeks, a woman who had given her whole life to her children only to be discarded like nothing. I pressed the phone against my chest and let the sobs come. The kind that left my body shaking, my breath ragged. Every cry echoed in the kitchen, bouncing off the walls that once held laughter. When the tears slowed, I forced myself up. My garden needed watering. It was something I could still control, something that didn't betray me. I stepped outside, gripping the hose. The air was heavy, the kind that made my skin stick, but I welcomed it. At least it was real. I turned on the water, watching it spill onto the soil. For a brief moment, I felt grounded. My hands steadied. But then the hose slipped, jerking free from my grasp. The water sprayed across me, soaking my dress, plastering it against my skin. I tried to laugh it off, but no sound came. Instead, I stood there dripping, shivering, even though the air was warm. The flowers I had tended for years swayed under the force of the stream, their petals beaten down. That's what I was. Something once cared for, now crushed under pressure I couldn't escape. I turned off the hose and dropped it, letting it snake across the grass. My dress clung to me, heavy, suffocating. I felt stripped of everything. My pride, my children, my place in this world. I whispered into the night. How did it come to this? The house loomed behind me, dark windows staring back. I wasn't just fighting Daniel anymore. Emily's voice still echoed in my ears, cold and detached. I had lost them both. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold the pieces together. My heart had shattered twice that day, once by my son, now by my daughter. I thought I had reached the bottom, that there was nothing left for them to take. But just as I stepped back inside, a knock rattled the door. I froze, water dripping onto the floor, my pulse racing. Who could it be at this hour? I reached for the handle, fear and hope battling inside me. And then I opened it. I sat at the kitchen table, my phone still lying face down where Emily had hung up on me. My eyes burned from crying, but no more tears would come. The house was silent, except for the tick of the old wall clock. I hated that sound now. It reminded me that time was moving forward, whether I wanted it to or not. Then came the knock, soft, almost hesitant. I froze. My heart raced, thinking maybe Daniel had come back. I wasn't ready for another fight. I wiped at my face quickly and opened the door. Evening, dear. Mrs. Turner stood there, holding a casserole dish wrapped in foil. I saw the light still on. Thought you might need a little company. I blinked at her, stunned. Oh, you didn't have to. She gave me a kind smile and pushed past gently, setting the dish on the counter. Don't argue with me. Eat something warm. You look pale. I hadn't eaten all day, but food was the last thing on my mind. It's kind of you, but… She cut me off. I heard some things, dear. People talk, and I can tell you're carrying more than you should alone. Sit with me a minute. I hesitated, then sat across from her, my hands fiddled with the edge of a napkin. It's true. He's trying to take the house. He filed papers. My own son. Her brow furrowed. Shameful. And Emily? I swallowed hard. She agrees with him. She thinks it's better if I move. Mrs. Better. Turner leaned back, arms folded. Children these days forget who raised them. But you don't have to let them walk over you. Her certainty startled me. What choice do I have? They have lawyers. Money. I'm just me. You have more than you think, she said firmly. My nephew's an attorney. Not one of those money-hungry ones either. If you want, I can call him. I stared at her. Hope flickered. Small, fragile, but real. Would he even take a case like mine? She reached across the table, patting my hand. He'll help. You've lived here decades. Don't let them scare you out of your own home. For the first time in weeks, I let out a shaky laugh. I've been sitting here drowning in papers, not even knowing what half of them mean. I felt so stupid. There's nothing stupid about being blindsided, she said. Show me what you've got. I got up quickly, pulling open the drawer where I'd hidden everything. I spread the folders, letters, and the original deed across the table. She adjusted her glasses, flipping through. Good. You kept the deed. That's gold. Her confidence lifted me. I picked up the casserole lid, letting the steam escape. The smell hit me, and my stomach growled embarrassingly. She chuckled softly. Eat. You'll think clearer. I shook my head. Every time I sit down to eat lately, I lose my appetite. I can't even finish a piece of bread without feeling sick. Not tonight. You're not falling apart on my watch. I took a small bite, then another. Warmth spread through me. Maybe it was the food, or maybe it was her words. For once, I didn't feel completely alone. She leaned closer. When's the hearing? Next week, I whispered. I don't even know what I'll say. You'll say the truth, she replied, and we'll make sure you say it strong. Let me call my nephew tomorrow. We'll practice. I rubbed at my eyes, feeling a new kind of tears pressing ones of relief. I don't know how to thank you. When, she said simply. That'll be thanks enough. I nodded, clutching the deed in my hands. My husband's words from his unfinished letter echoed in my mind. Keep the original safe. Maybe he knew this moment would come. Maybe he knew I'd have to fight alone. Except, I wasn't completely alone anymore. We spent hours at the table, stacking papers neatly, making little piles. She asked me to tell her the whole story from the start. Every word Daniel had said, every time Emily stayed silent. I spoke until my throat went dry. She listened without judgment, her eyes flashing with anger at each betrayal. When I finished, she tapped the papers. This is more than enough. They won't get away with it. Her conviction steadied something inside me. For the first time, I believed it might be possible. As she got up to leave, she hugged me tight. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. I walked her to the door, the casserole dish empty in my hands. For a moment, the house didn't feel quite so hollow. I whispered, "Thank you," as she waved and disappeared down the path. Closing the door, I exhaled. My heart felt lighter. I gathered the papers into one pile, pressing the deed on top like a shield. I whispered to myself, I can do this. I have to. I stood at the sink, washing the dish she'd brought. This time, my hands didn't shake. For weeks, everything I touched slipped, shattered, or burned. But tonight, the water ran steady, and I held the glass firm. For the first time since Daniel's words in the kitchen, I didn't feel powerless. But just as I set the dish aside, I heard my phone buzz on the counter. I dried my hands quickly and picked it up. A new email. My stomach flipped when I saw the subject line, Court Evidence Submission, Respondent. I clicked it open. Attached were scanned pages, documents with my name signed neatly at the bottom, papers I had never seen before. Papers that claimed I had signed over my rights. My knees nearly gave out. My signature stared back at me, bold and clear. And the worst part? At first glance, it looked real. The wooden bench pressed hard against my back, but I barely noticed. My palms were damp, my chest tight. I told myself to breathe, but the air felt heavy. This was it. The day Daniel tried to erase me in front of strangers. The bailiff called our case. My knees shook as I rose, clutching my bag like it was the last piece of safety I had left. Inside was the deed, folded so many times the paper edges had begun to fray. I whispered a prayer, stepped forward, and forced myself not to look at Daniel yet. His voice cut through the silence before I could even sit down. Your Honor, my mother already signed over the property years ago. The words hit me like a slap. My head snapped up, and my eyes locked on him. He was calm, too calm, as if he'd rehearsed this moment in the mirror. That's not true, I said, louder than I meant. My voice cracked. I never signed away anything. Never. Daniel's lawyer smirked and slid a stack of papers across the table to the judge. If you'll look at Exhibit B, you'll see her signature. Dated and notarized. My stomach dropped. Papers. Always papers. How many times could pieces of paper decide my life? The judge adjusted his glasses, studying the documents. For a moment, the entire room blurred. My heart hammered in my ears. I gripped the edge of the table just to steady myself. Daniel leaned back in his chair, smug. His wife, sitting behind him, crossed her legs slowly, as if she were settling in to watch me fall apart. I forced my voice steady. Those are fake. I never signed anything like that. The judge glanced at me. Do you have proof of that claim? Proof. The words sliced through me. My husband had always said, keep everything. Someday, you'll need it. I had kept the deed, yes, but how could I prove what I didn't sign? My lawyer rose, flipping through our files. Your Honor, if you compare the signature on this supposed transfer with other verified documents, you'll see inconsistencies. The handwriting is different. The slant, the pressure, it doesn't match. The judge frowned. That's a serious accusation. Forgery is a crime. I stared at Daniel, searching for a flicker of guilt, a shadow of the boy I once raised. He didn't flinch. He met my gaze with the coldness of a stranger. Mom, he said suddenly, his tone dripping with false concern, why are you doing this? You're tired. You're not thinking clearly. We're just trying to help you. Help me? Rage burned hot under my skin. My voice shook, but I didn't lower it. Help me? By stealing the house your father and I built. By dragging me here like I'm nothing? Don't you dare call this help. Gasps rippled from the small crowd sitting in the gallery. I didn't care. Let them hear. Let them all hear what kind of man my son had become. The judge tapped his gavel lightly. Order. Both of you, keep your emotions in check. But I couldn't stop the tears filling my eyes. I pressed the back of my hand to my face, ashamed of crying in front of everyone. Still, my voice broke through the sobs. That's my home. My husband's memory lives in those walls. And you're trying to take it like it means nothing. For a split second, Daniel's jaw tightened. Then he smirked again, leaning closer. Mom, no one will believe you. Not against this. He nodded toward the forged papers. My insides turned to ice. Was he right? Would the court believe him? The man with resources and lawyers over me? A grieving widow clinging to scraps of proof. My lawyer whispered, stay calm. Don't let them rattle you. But my mind screamed, they've already rattled me. They've broken me. The judge flipped back and forth between the papers. It does appear to be her signature. Unless we have evidence proving otherwise, this will weigh heavily. The room tilted. My knees threatened to give out. This was the moment. My worst fear. Losing not just the case, but the last piece of my life that mattered. I whispered under my breath, I can't lose this house. I can't. Daniel heard me. His lips curled into a smile only I could see. A smile that said he believed he'd already won. Something inside me snapped. I straightened my shoulders. My tears hadn't dried yet, but I forced my voice stronger. That's not my signature, and I can prove it. Look at the date. Look closely. The judge raised an eyebrow. My lawyer caught on, flipping to a separate file. He pulled out medical records. Your Honor, on that date, my client was in the hospital recovering from surgery. She was under sedation. She couldn't have signed anything, the courtroom murmured. The judge studied the papers again, leaning closer this time. He compared dates, signatures, records, his brow furrowed deeper. Daniel's smug expression faltered. His wife whispered something urgently in his ear, but he shook her off, his face paling. I clutched the edge of the table, hope surging for the first time in weeks. My voice dropped to a whisper, but it carried. You forged my name. You tried to erase me. Daniel's eyes flicked to mine. There it was, the crack in his armor. The judge finally set the forged papers aside. This evidence raises serious questions. We will need handwriting analysis and further review. The gavel struck. The session adjourned for the day. I didn't move. My legs refused. My lawyer leaned toward me. We're not finished, but this is good. Very good. Good. The word rang hollow. Because as I sat there, I saw Daniel gather his things, avoiding my eyes now. The man who once clung to my skirt as a boy wouldn't even look at me. I pressed my hand against my chest, my heart still pounding. I had survived this round, yes. But the war wasn't over. And as I stood to leave, gripping my bag with the original deed still safe inside, I knew one thing with certainty. Daniel had underestimated me. I thought I had seen the worst of his betrayal, but deep down, I knew he wasn't done yet. I didn't sleep the night before. My body sat in the chair, but my mind wandered endlessly between memories of my husband and the image of Daniel standing in that courtroom, pointing at me as if I were a stranger trespassing in his home. I held the deed under my pillow, almost afraid it might disappear if I let go. When morning came, my hands trembled, pouring water into the kettle. The whistle sounded sharper than usual, cutting through the silence. I couldn't taste the tea. My stomach twisted with every sip. I kept asking myself the same question. What if the judge believes him? What if I lose everything? At the courthouse, Mrs. Turner squeezed my arm. You've got this. Don't let him scare you. I nodded, though my legs felt weak. Inside, the air carried a heavy quietness. People shuffled papers, whispered, and looked straight ahead, pretending not to notice the drama between a mother and her son. Daniel stood with his lawyer near the front. He wore a crisp suit, his tie perfectly in place. His wife sat behind him, her lips curved into that smug little smile I had grown to despise. When Daniel turned and saw me, his eyes didn't soften, they hardened. Mom, he said flatly, this will be over soon. Don't embarrass yourself. I stared at him, searching for even a flicker of the boy I raised. But all I saw was greed. Embarrass myself? My voice cracked. You dragged your own mother into court. Whatever shame there is, it's not mine. He smirked, leaning close. The house is mine. Just accept it. Before I could answer, the judge entered and everyone rose. My knees almost gave out, but I forced myself upright. This wasn't just about a house. It was about my dignity, my husband's memory, my very place in this world. The case began quickly. Daniel's lawyer strode to the front, his voice smooth and practiced. He repeated the same lies from before, waving around those forged documents. Your Honor, these papers clearly show that the defendant willingly signed over her rights. My client has every legal right to the property. I wanted to scream, to tear those pages out of his hand, but my lawyer pressed my arm gently, signaling patience. The judge glanced at me. Mrs. Wilson, do you have anything to present? My lawyer stood, holding the folder we carefully prepared. Yes, Your Honor. We have the original deed with both Mr. and Mrs. Wilson listed as joint owners. We also have medical records proving Mrs. Wilson was hospitalized during the date these alleged transfer papers were supposedly signed. She could not have signed them. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. I looked over at Daniel. His confident expression faltered for the first time. His wife leaned in, whispering frantically. The judge took the documents, adjusting his glasses. For a moment, the entire room was silent except for the sound of papers turning. My heart hammered so loud I could hear it in my ears. Finally, the judge looked up. Mr. Wilson, do you have an explanation for this discrepancy? Daniel shifted, clearing his throat. There must be some mistake. A mistake? My lawyer's voice sharpened. So the signature on these transfer papers, dated during Mrs. Russand. Wilson's hospitalization? Whose handwriting is this then? It certainly isn't hers. The judge's eyes narrowed at Daniel. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Then the gavel struck once. This court finds in favor of the defendant, Mrs. Wilson. The property remains legally hers. Furthermore, the evidence presented by the plaintiff is questionable and may warrant further investigation. The words hit me with such force I nearly collapsed. Relief flooded me, warm and overwhelming, and tears spilled down my face before I could stop them. I had won. Against all odds, I had won. But when I turned to look at Daniel, the victory turned bitter. His face was pale, jaw clenched, his eyes refusing to meet mine. Emily wasn't even there. My children, my own blood had abandoned me, and now one of them had tried to ruin me completely. As the courtroom emptied, Mrs. Percy Turner hugged me tightly. You did it. You stood your ground. I clutched the deed to my chest, nodding through tears. I did. But at what cost? Daniel brushed past me on his way out, muttering under his breath, You'll regret this. His wife tugged his arm, hurrying him away. I stood frozen, watching my son walk out of my life, not as family, but as an enemy. The weight of that truth nearly crushed me. When I finally stepped outside, the sun stung my eyes. Reporters weren't there, no cameras, no applause, just the quiet reality of what had happened. I still had my house, yes, but the family I thought would always protect me, they were gone. That night, I brewed another cup of tea in the kitchen. The same kitchen where Daniel had once sat with scraped knees, asking me for cookies. The same kitchen where he had told me I couldn't stay anymore. The house felt both safe and unbearably empty. I traced the rim of the teacup with my finger, staring at the stack of papers on the table. My victory was on paper. My loss was in my heart. I whispered into the silence, I won, but I lost too. And as I sat there alone, one question echoed louder than anything else. What is a home worth if the family inside it is broken?